Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Lyceum evening. And I thought it'd just be nice tonight to have a nice little general chat about things. All topics are open, appertaining to spiritualism. So welcome your thoughts and your inputs and your engagement with things. And just see where the night takes us. Always very exciting. Let's wait for a few to join. Good evening, everybody joining us now. Thank you so much for being there. Hello, Phil. How are you, sir? So, yeah, just a general chit-chat about whatever. Something to do with spiritualism. Been thinking recently, thoughts are going on about the rally that we've got coming up here in Poole. Those of you may not be aware, we are planning a day on the 21st of August, a Sunday, where we have a lineup of different mediums from around the UK, and they'll be giving a list of talks. So we kick off the day with Elaine Bevan. She'll be talking on an aspect of the history of spiritualism, followed by our wonderful healer, Brian Walker, there you go, who will be talking about healing within spiritualism. Then we have Stephen Mager talking about science and spiritualism, Leonard Tapp, the philosophy of spiritualism, Bill Rich, the evidential mediumship within spiritualism, and then rounded off with a talk by Mark Stone. And that will be a trance demonstration, so we can hear direct from spirit themselves. How wonderful is that? But it's just interesting. Hello, Margaret. Hello, Mary. It's just interesting thoughts. We had Bill Rich here yesterday for an evening of mediumship, and we were chatting, as we do quite often. And it's just interesting conversations at these times. And it's sort of like, what does spiritualism mean to you? It's a very interesting and very open question. Hello, lovely Eva. Being a spiritualist, what does that actually mean to you? There's so much going on, and there's so many different schools of thought about it. Get the conversation rolling. One aspect that came up, we were talking about evidential mediumship and private sittings. And I've been a very big advocate. Hello, Jack. How are you, sir? Very big advocate of the spiritual assessments. Now, I find these an absolutely fascinating part of our work that we've probably not heard so much of in the past. Good evening, Marion. But when you look at things and sort of like try and examine the underlying energy, when we have a private sitting, obviously we are looking for that evidential basis. Lola, darling. Hello, Julie. That evidential basis, not the fake. I've got your mother here and she loves you. That's not good enough. That really is not good enough. We need to supply that evidence, not the information, the evidence. But for many years now, we have had an awful lot of evidence put in front of us in various church services, centre work services, more recently through the online demonstrations, our own experiences with private sittings. And it was just the conversation was flowing this morning. And linking in with this energy, we talk about the spiritual assessments. And it's almost like, we're always seeking the evidence, which is quite right. But where do we start defining and saying, well, do you know what? I've had the evidence now. I have had enough evidence in my time of the continuity of life what's the next step? What can we do now with spirit? Well, in my humble, very humble opinion, and it is only my opinion, one of the facets and one of the assets that we have to our great movement are these practices called spiritual assessments, where actually we're receiving that guidance, not only from loved ones in spirit, but from those who work with us, about what can we do here. Now, it's a very funny energy to deal with, because it is most certainly not a fortune-telling practice. I always say, if you're going to say you've got a 6'2" handsome stranger coming in your life, you say, "Oi, I'm first for that one." So by no means that. But when we look at the greater meaning, the word of mediumship, we have become accustomed, haven't we, that when we talk about a medium, immediately we've got somebody up there on the platform doing an evidential demonstration. But we're all mediums of one form or another, through healing, through inspiration, through music, the arts, creativity. Everything is there. And whatever our abilities are, spirit are only too eager to work with us on those abilities. We do confine ourselves and our thinking, saying, well, a medium, they're only the people who are going to sit up there or do private sittings. And we deny ourselves that understanding and that opportunity that we are mediums. And spirit, through inspiration, through guidance, through upliftment, can commune with us through these spiritual assessments to further us along. But we need to make that change in our thinking. This is something that came out just in flow of conversation today, and I thought that is really interesting. If we keep attending DEMs or having private sittings, we all know that there are people who, if allowed to, would become totally addicted to sittings, or going to certain DEMs because they only like that medium because normally they say nice things to me. Let's be honest. We need to make that shift and say, do you know what, Spirit? The amount of evidence I've had in my time, I can't deny there is truth in this. I can't deny it. The things I've heard, the evidence I've been given, which nobody else ever knew, but it came through clear as day. The experiences we've had ourselves. When we sort of get to that stage, this is where I feel us here now, our spiritual evolution can start to progress. Where we're going to start to say to spirit, okay, yeah, I know you're there. I've had that evidence. What do we do now? And this is one area where I think spiritual assessments are really going to come to the fore, especially over the next few years. But we need to keep that movement going within our movement, because we have stalled a little bit over the last 15, 20 years. We have stalled. The emphasis in many cases, and including Paul pre-COVID, we are not innocent of this, the emphasis was on the message, but not what does it mean. It's wonderful to have that message. So what's your thoughts on those premises of how can we start to evolve our movement of spiritualism, and going from the spectator to the participant role within it? Hello, how are you? So just a few thoughts there. Again, I'll draw back now to the rally that we're having here at Paul. That is our contribution to engage people, not only who are already spiritualists and well-versed, but also new people coming in, want to find out more about us. We live in a very educated age nowadays, and we tend to sometimes to forget that. A lot of the people we walk past in the streets and we come into in our social circumstances hold degrees. They are very well educated. And sometimes we don't probably raise our profile enough to strike that balance in the conversations. I have seen this a few times, and that can be, you get somebody come in very earnestly looking, but they need to be met with a degree of intelligence. And that word is a very big word, because we're hearing it more and more now at this time from various practitioners, and talking about the intelligence of spirit. Because we need to break through this area where we seem to have just got caught in a little bit of an eddy and going round and round. And we refer to spirit as a third person singular. It's spirit. Well, actually, what spirit? Because when we say spirit, we're talking about humanity. We don't sit there and say, well, humanity told me this. But we're quite happy to say, well, spirit told me this. So we need to start really working on our connection and comprehension. When spirit come through and talk to us, they are people. They are people who have lived lives similar to ours. They may have lived many lives, whatever. It doesn't matter. But they are people. They are individual. They are unique. When we have our contacts come through on our evidential mediumship, naturally they will present themselves with energies of as they were remembered, because the whole purpose of that communication is just establish that identity. But once we've got that identity, I do feel where we have become a little bit focused on the message only. If Great Aunt Elsie always had a perm on a Thursday, and she went to the market on a Saturday morning and did bingo on a Friday night, if we keep continually going for sittings and for readings in that sort of frame of mind and that energy, I want to hear from Elsie, they'll keep presenting themselves that way for the identification, because basically that's what we put out, that's what we've asked for. But if we start making that next step of going, you know what, Elsie, you've come through so many mediums, I know you exist. I'm really fascinated now to find how you exist now, because you presented yourself in that time, but we hold them in that time because that is our last memories of them. But we neglect the fact that once we're in spirit, we have abilities and possibilities. Some we understand, many, many more we do not comprehend. But to start engaging and finding out, you know what, Elsie may have loved a bingo on a Friday night, but do you know what she's doing at the moment? She is working very hard with her energies in the upliftment of nurses, because she has that healing ability with her. And that to me is fascinating. That to me, start getting that real engagement with spirit and the conversation opened up. So you got any thoughts at all on what's being said, please put them in, because these nights are a discussion. Normally I would have a guest with me, but tonight, because of the last week's been quite busy, we haven't got anybody. So if there's anybody out there who wants to jump in, Jack, please please do. But what are your thoughts? What does spiritualism mean to you? And don't worry, I always run a very safe environment here. We don't decry persons, organisations. Keep this very much in the energy of debate. So anything that's said is on the topic of debate. There's no judgmental aspect to it. But it is fascinating, isn't it? And it's also to me, spiritualism is a movement of growth. And that's one aspect which really, really touches my soul and my vibration. That it's a continual movement, it's a continual progression. You know, we often come into different spiritualism and spiritual aspects wanting to know the end result. Good example, platform medium. I'm going to learn to be a platform medium, right? So I'm going to put in the time, I'm going to put in the dedication, I'm going to go through that process. And as long as that is there within my energies, you know, we see people trying to be going through various courses and things and go, why is my mediumship, my evidential mediumship, not going anywhere? I had this case just recently, and I just said very politely, who told you you were an evidential medium? You know, after what I can see, you're an amazing healer. Try that. But it's all about growth, isn't it? You know, and we do tend to see people getting fixated on the goal. But we're talking here eternity. We're talking here the progression of our soul, that indestructible part of us that has lived forever and will live forever. And where we're making these progresses here in our spiritualism and spirituality practices, these will have an effect upon our soul. We've got a lovely gentleman in our beginners circle here, 6-week course, and at the grand age of 92. Now, some people might say, oh, what's the point of him doing that? Every point. Because we are developing our soul. But that is, to me, an always eternal pathway. We should never get to a point and go, oh, that's it, I made it now. I'm getting bookings, so therefore I'm a medium. Hey, happy days. We should never get to that point. We should always be pushing and trying, interacting. I mean, this day and age has brought forward many golden opportunities, talks such as this. People to share their thoughts, their ideas. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, great. But we can come together in that energy of debate and talk about things, which is something that wasn't so available to us outside of courses and seminars in places where we, for whatever reason, may not be able to get to. So, joining in, lovely, Joanna Lewis. Good evening, my darling Joanna. Spiritualism is a way of life to me, not only to communicate with spirit, to be at one with all, joy and contentment within, peace within and without, understanding the meaning of life and continued growth. Beautiful, beautiful, Joanna. And it does bring that in. You know, our greatest truth, there is no death. We say that, but do we really get it? Do we really understand that phrase? Because I believe that when you really get that one phrase and you really understand it with all that underpinning knowledge, I mean, number one, it adds so much value to this life and everything, because we're here going through this experience as part of our progression. So yeah, let's get engaged with it, because we can engage with it without fear. We can say, do you know what? All right, at the moment, and let's be honest, we look around the world and we think, okay, what next? I'm just waiting for the aliens to land or whatever. You know, just bring it on. But we can engage without fear, because we know that this time is fleeting in our eternal life. And what greater truth, what a world-changing energy, that if people really understood that there is no death, that makes this life so valuable and just such an opportunity. So thank you, Joanna. That's wonderful. Lovely, Jack. I do agree that we all time have been to focus on everything, but I have to say, as well as can be a great tool, but must not forget that it still has to be in evidential. Yeah, I get your gist there, Jack. the greatest tool and asset to our religion, because we are a recognized religion, is that we are not in the energy of the orthodoxies, where we are recanting words written over time and through different circumstances, and bringing what we call that blind faith aspect. We can, through our work as mediums, demonstrate the truth of our belief. So be that through the evidential mediumship, bringing in, and I'm not talking the Fey generational descriptions. I've got your granny in, she loved cooking. Well, do you know what? Everybody's granny cooked, because you didn't have microwaves, you didn't have Just Eat, you didn't have Deliveroo, so there are two choices. They either cooked or didn't exist. But that real succinct, when a medium is really on the ball and really linked in and listening, not only is it the words that are said and the descriptions, and I don't mean the physical descriptions, but the memories coming through, you can feel that presence. How many times have you sat there in the dem and just suddenly thought, they're going to come to me? You may or may not know who the communicator is going to be, but it's just suddenly in your awareness. It's like, they're coming to me. Or if somebody's throwing things out and not want, we know we have people that want, but when somebody starts getting described, you go, I know who that is. I know, because I can feel them. And that is one of the biggest beauties of our religion. That it's true communication. What do we yearn for the most? We yearn for the physical. Smells are very evocative. If I smell certain perfumes, my mum's there, because there were certain perfumes only she would wear. If I smell certain cigar smoke, a very good friend of mine is there. And it's not just the memory come to the fore, it's the actual energy is there. They're there because you've gone, oh my God, that's mum's perfume. And they're there. And we don't need that communication. We can say, oh, thank you so much for coming. But we yearn for that communication. But in and through the ability of our evidential mediums, we can get as close as we can to that physical presence of them back, which is perfectly natural. But as I say, when we're getting these amazing, and do you know what I'm noticing in this post-COVID era, that the quality and the standard of evidence with a lot of mediums seems to have just sort of like gone up a shift. And why not? Why not? Spirit come to us because they love us. And at the moment, we're all hurting. We're fearful, we're concerned, we're worried. So of course Spirit will make that extra effort to come through and say, it will be all right. It will be all right. So yes, Jack. Yes, I agree. Lovely Julie, the Womble. In our home circle, we work very much with our spirit group. We ask them questions of what they are doing, learning, etc. And I use some of the teachings in workshops that you do. Brilliant, Julie. That is so good to hear. And so interesting as well that you're taking already that which I was talking about earlier. Not only just taking, once we've established that core belief, that core understanding, that when we pass, we shut our eyes here and open our eyes wherever. Once we really get to grips with that and we can come back and communicate, we should be engaging more and going, so what are you doing now? We're meeting people who are loved ones, dear friends, whatever. And if we bumped into somebody who we knew 20 years ago on the earth plane, and then suddenly we bumped into them again down the high street, what's the first thing you're going to say? Oh my God, how have you been? What have you been up to? You know, it's a perfectly natural thing, but it does take us to take that thought, that energy, and that acceptance with us when we continue our works or our understandings of spirit through our evidential mediums. Lovely Julianne, who I had a great pleasure of hosting last week. In fact, last week you were sat here with us, Julianne. How wonderful. And I'm Spirit, working with Spirit, sharing communication for spiritual people. Very true, and you do an exceptionally good job. You really do. Your philosophy, your presence, your evidential mediumship. You raised the bar, Julianne, and thank you. Jack, thank you, Jack, because I thought maybe you've been on the apple pies, Jack. Speak to text can work and miss up a little bit. Yeah, because there was bits of that previous comment. I thought, I'm really not quite sure what you're saying there, mate. So Jack again, this speak to text is new to me to use, but it does remind me a little bit of mediumship. When I think it's coming out, it's changing a little bit. When it comes into text, a little bit like mediumship does. Yeah, very true. Because what's one of the hardest things evidential mediums have to cope with is this. This damned thing. I always say to people, you know, if spirits show you a fish, don't say, I'm seeing a cod. You're seeing a fish. Yeah, but we do. We're human. We have that fallibility that we tend to insert a word and to get. One of the hardest things I think to work on. You get told in your development that you got to clear your mind and don't do anything, and then you get into the stage of, well, then you got to ask spirit things. And I'm thinking, hang on, I've just cleared my mind. So if I start asking things, I'm activating this. How do you do that? It does happen. And Jack, if you don't mind, I will use an example of when you were working over here, and you started off a communication, and you said two words which are slightly contradictory, and he went, "Oh, sorry about that." No, actually, I want to go with that. And the message that unfolded from what could have easily been put down to a slip of the tongue or whatever, just suddenly flowered into this beautiful communication that was really needed by the recipient. So yeah, I like that, Jack. Thank you. I'm not going to use speak to text. I shall avoid that. I use it on Word to dictate letters and things, but you still have to go through it because suddenly you realise punctuation is a wonderful tool. So yeah, some interesting comments out there. Thank you. But so we are looking here at what being a spiritualist. What do we want to see from our movement? This is always a good question. What do we want to see from our movement? Are we being catered to fully at the moment? Is there room for improvement? Are we not sure of what we would like, but just know there's more? So do we not know the questions to ask? That's always a very good thing to think about. Lovely Myra from Norway. How are you, my darling? I could say spirituality has been part of my daily life since the really early years. There has been an inner knowing that there is more than this life, even before I got consciously engaged with spiritualism and mediumship. My first spirit contacts just appeared to me, and I could confirm and evidence given afterwards. A son got spirits visiting when he was below 7, evidence which through our past relatives with me, but not known to him. He put my interest to search, and run out of text there. But yeah, that's an interesting thing as well. Kiddies, you know, a lot of churches have Finland. I beg your pardon. Get it right, Lawrence. Finland, not Norway. Tut. Yeah, children. That natural ability. Many, on our evenings where we talk to our guests, one of the favourite questions is, where does it start from you? And invariably, most of them, probably about 85%, start off that segment by saying, well, when I was really young, because we haven't got that clutter. And this is the thing that evidential mediums today, we all struggle with, because we've got clutter. We need things in our tool bag, our toolkit for spirit to be able to use. But we've just got to stop being so nosy. But that's beautiful, Mara. Beautiful. Lola, getting told off here tonight. I'm just sat here on my own, just pottering along, and I'm getting shouted at. What's going on? Next time you're doing this, can we please do it on Zoom? Speaking is easier than tapping on the phone. Well, I'm sorry. You don't get yourself a computer, love. That's down to you. Actually, there you go. You were meant to have said that. Thank you. What do we think about the different platforms that we are using for our movement, where we're coming into this generation now of what I lovingly call the electronic mediums? I love this platform that we're on tonight, StreamYard, for these sort of evenings when we're talking to 1, 2, 3 or 4 more guests. You can keep the focus on the conversation and bring people's comments in at the side, which is absolutely joyous. However, for evidential mediumship, this is not the best platform, in my opinion, and through my experience. We have a delay of about 40 seconds, I think, between me saying something, you actually hearing it, you then typing out the response, and then getting back to me. That whole process takes 40 seconds. So if I were working as an evidential medium tonight, I'd say to, let's pick on somebody, Julie, I've got a gentleman coming here, and I know there is an association with him being an air warden. I know I can see the ARP tin hat with this gentleman as well. Would you understand that? So if we were doing an evidential session, I've asked that, but I've now got to wait 40 seconds. And trust me, when you're working mediumistically, 40 seconds is like an eternity for Julie to say no. And then you're just like, oh God. But Zoom, as Lola mentioned there, Zoom is, to me, just a magical tool for our work. Definitely an inspired. It was created for business. But where did that creative thought come from? Who sat there one day and just idling away and went, do you know what? I think this might be a really good idea. Where did that initial thought come from? I strongly believe in many, many, many cases of things that initial thought comes from spirit. How it's used and how it's applied is in the hands. We've got free will. So how it's used, how it's applied is entirely up to them. But that initial creative thought. And those of you who are on tonight, I'm sure many of you are well versed with Zoom meetings where we have the magnificent gallery of everybody being able to interact and being able to talk directly. Going forward, what are we looking at? Are we going to see the creation of virtual churches, places of worship. See, terminology, we get very hung up on that as well, don't we? Are we going to see the creation of those coming in and being much more active and progressive? All sorts of things. Phil. Blending trance with evidential mediumship as a life path guidance mirrored against ways in which our loved ones have been learning in spirit, and how this often parallels what the message recipient is experiencing, is an aspect of the way in which I'm now working with my spirit team. I feel that is very interesting. I get that. And I have found in my own private sittings with people that actually the hardcore evidence is not the main tenet of the sitting. Somebody will present themselves with enough evidence, and bless your heart, Julie, you put the thumbs up, so I take it that's a yes about the air raid warden. That's great, thank you. Helmet going in here. But, the actual private sittings where it used to be like 30 minutes or however long of evidence and memories being shared, which is beautiful. People are actually saying now, oh, yeah, that's great, but what about now? I'm concerned. I'm worried about supporting my family. I'm worried about where my development's going. I'm worried about all manner of aspects of life in 2022, and getting that guidance. And this is where we've got to tread very carefully. This is where we've got to tread very, very carefully. There are only a certain number of mediums that I would use here for spiritual assessments, and that's not dictated to in any other way than I have experienced and trust their mediumship totally. And that's not saying that I don't trust the other ones, but I know that that is within their energy to bring that forward. Because as I predict, the need and the call for spiritual assessments will rise, so too will rise the number of people online. I saw one today, an advert, and looking at the list of credentials this person's abilities, and for only $150 I can give you a 20-minute spiritual assessment. You just think, really? We should have $150 just to fritter away just for the experience. So yeah, but I have noticed in my mediumship, I did a Zoom one the other day, and the evidence was there first couple of minutes, but then the rest was just about this person, about their health, about what they're going to, about the options they've got in life. And again, I must emphasize this is no way fortune telling. And again, we have to be very, very, very careful how we put this over. Because we could be opening up doorways here to litigious practices. I went to America because the medium said that my future lies in America. And after living here for 6 months, I'm now bankrupt and have to come home. So I'm going to sue him because he told me I should go. Lots of things. Lovely Marion Frisbee. Once we no longer see demonstrations as entertainment, to progress to gain understanding of the philosophy of our beliefs, it should become a way of life, awareness of our personal responsibility to become engaged in service in the here and now, to be that expression of the love that we are. Eternal progress is a lifetime's work. Mediumship, healing, philosophy, training on all levels for living a practical and spiritual life. Marion, I know you're a very well-respected demonstrator, and I can see why with that philosophy. How beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. It is, we tend to shift our awareness at times from being practical to being spiritual. and then back from being spiritual to being practical. To me, the ultimate goal is to blend all those states. That you can just sit there and, Marion, there's parts of that comment that you put in there that are through your inspirational links. And I think that's beautiful when that works like that. That inspirational tenant can just flow through, be it on platforms like this, in a message to somebody, in a comment on somebody's posts, but we need to start recognizing this as well and tapping into those energies. So beautiful. Thank you, Marion. That's absolutely lovely. Hope. As children, we get confused. Why are we seeing spirit and who they are? When we get scared. I had an imaginary friend for a while when I was little, asked my mum to cook and other things for him. Very common thing that of imaginary friends. But again, it's, hopefully as the generations move on, because I'm seeing the promise in the younger generations coming up. I'm seeing promise in some of the phraseology they use, some of the aspects of what they think about in the world. So I'm seeing more of an openness and talking about energy. The metaphysical side of spiritualism, I think, will suit a lot of people, especially the empaths. I really recommend if you are an empath, look into the metaphysical side. Empaths, we pick up all the emotion. The trouble is we then tend to react emotionally as well. So if you look down the metaphysical route where we're talking about energies rather than emotions, it tends to lessen the rebound from us. But that's my own personal little thing at the moment. But yeah, I am seeing more of an awareness with subsequent generations coming in and an openness to it. That the door is there, it is open, but it's up to our churches, centres, groups, whatever, to engage with the, very sadly, I went to a service not too long ago, and I'd no nastiness or anything. I didn't get a lot out of the service. It was incredibly orthodox, and I want to come out of church or a centre. I want to come out happy. I want to come out thinking, do you know what? That was great. I love that. I love the philosophy. Oh, wasn't it nice seeing these? Whatever. I want to come out on a roll, on a buzz. And sadly, I didn't. But we've got to look at how we can get. I'm not saying we tear down all the old to accommodate the new, because that will never work. We've always got to pay deference to our history. But we have got to look at different ways we can engage and talk more their language by encouraging younger mediums into our movement, which is a whole gamut of things, isn't it? So, thank you, Hope. Julianne, I say thank God for Zoom, which gave us a platform which has helped get our religion through to many more people, especially those who have been skeptical about what we do. It lets them see us, spiritualists, as normal people who believe in life after life and have God in our lives. Well said, Julianne. Well said. We've seen it in the historical side of spiritualism that at the end of the First World War, spiritualism was already there. It was already there. It's been in our history since cavemen. Simply as that, but more recognised as a movement or an organisation since the late 1800s. After the First World War, it was one of the biggest quantum leaps for our movement, because millions of people didn't come home. millions of them. And of course, that left millions of people here, this side of life, going, what's happened? Are they dead? And that, I want to know. So we saw a great leap forward in our movement at the end of the First World War, subsequent wars, and the Spanish flu. Again, the rebound effect. People want to know, when people walk out of our lives and we don't see them again because of war, because of disease or whatever, we're left asking those questions, why, what's going on? This time, the COVID era, I'm sure we all remember here in the UK when our first lockdown came in March. We woke up one morning and the world had stopped. And it gave that time, because through fear, through worry, through concern, which was perfectly natural, we started looking at our lives and maybe thinking, what would I do if my partner wasn't here? Or what would my partner do if I wasn't here? What would my kids do if I wasn't here? What would I do if one of my kids wasn't here? My God, what an awful thing for a parent. So again, it's invoked and promoted this searching. And it's not just spiritualism. The Orthodox churches are reporting of increased attendances because we've had our mortality challenge yet again on a grand scale. So yeah, I agree with you. And platforms like Zoom not only allow that communication to work, and to some degree, probably a slightly more balanced link than sometimes we get on the platform. Because, if you go, I'll use you as an example, my darling Julianne. To serve us last week, you had to drive all the way up here from Plymouth. It was about a 4-hour drive. So you're here in a strange place with a strange man. Sorry about that. You come into a church. We don't know what the vibrations are going to be like until we actually walk through the door. So we've got so much to deal with to be able to stand on our platforms to talk. But then with the advent of platforms like Zoom, we're sat at home. We haven't had to travel. We haven't got ourselves had to do much. We can just sit there in our own environment and comfortable and suddenly be online and working with spirit. I've noticed, and talking to quite a few other mediums, that they found very interesting side effects of demonstrating online on platforms like Zoom, where it's allowed to flow, is that actually the melding of the vibrations is significantly more powerful than sometimes on the platform, because on the platform we are at the mercy of the congregation. They create that energy that we're working with it. So yeah, I agree with you that Zoom was, whoever found that, well done. Well done. But there's something I said there and I can't remember what, but we will go back. Lovely. Good evening, Mr. Cox from Florida. How are you, sweetie? He's such a lovely man. He's saying, I've noticed here in the US, when some of our big-time mediums do demonstrations, none of them talk about spirituality, the spirit world, and they don't talk about spiritual teachings. Interesting. I have noticed here in the UK, not all of them, do not shoot the messenger, not all of them, but some of the bigger names of evidential or psychic mediums, as they tend to advertise themselves, do not include churches and centres as part of their tour. Now, I was thinking about that quite a few years ago and thought, I wonder if, these people will have engaged publicists and the publicist's job is to create that image in which to sell your wares. That's why you're up there. And I do not knock mediums who go out and work the big theatres, because to stand up there in front of all those people and get that melding of the energies, absolutely beautiful gift. And it's not for everybody. I fully get that. But I do think that maybe in some cases, publicists and whatever get involved, and their clients, they're creating this image for general public consumption. And one facet of that image they may be trying to create is to not become linked to a religion in any way, shape, or form. If you look at the stars, the Hollywood stars, so they say, the TV stars, a lot of the musicians, singers, their religious and theosophic beliefs are not part of their public presentation. So, yeah, I agree, Ron. I do agree. Dems of mediumship are interesting. And they are very interesting at this time because things have changed again and will continue to change. We're not seeing the attendances in the churches and centres to the Dems that we would have done 2 or 3 years ago. However, in some venues, and namely where you've got social clubs, so you've got bar facilities, hotel, they seem to be sometimes holding their own, because it's more of an evening out for people. And this is not a funny comment at all. I don't make funny comments. When I'm being serious. Ask anybody I've dealt with. People who go along to the Dems of mediumship tend not to be the people who are coming to churches and centres. Now, I know we could go down the line here and people say, well, I don't go to church because of the word church. Well, you know what? I just feel sorry for anybody who won't go into a church because it's got the word church over it. I just feel quite sorry for them. You're denying yourself access to an experience. If I was bitten by a Labrador when I was 4, I probably wouldn't go the rest of my life hating Labradors. I'm not having anything to do with them. It was of a time. So I fully appreciate people have a reason why they don't like the word church. But when it becomes a disbarring element, I just find that a bit of a lost opportunity. But yeah, the Dems within, as I say, the hospitality industry, so in hotels or theatres where you can meet up with people, which is in today's world a blessing, a joy to be had and experience all over again. They're not doing too badly. But then we look at the actual effect upon our sensitives, our demonstrators, our mediums. Some can work in that environment absolutely very adeptly, and that's brilliant. Others would struggle because when you have liquor involved, it changes the energy, it changes the atmosphere. So you've got to have a really strong medium to hold their own in those. But yeah, yes, Ron, I agree. Phil Shaw, delayed response from recipients can be challenging, as in our stream divine services at Wimbledon Spiritualist Church via SBTV. But Spirit has facilitated successful switching from online to church congregation and the reverse, although it's a very different ball game to just an in-church demo requiring a particular technique. Yeah, I get what you mean. If I remember correctly, you're on YouTube as well, which also has a delay there between things being said and actually seeing the response. But also that energy echoes into our churches and centres today. Several people demonstrating mediums have all agreed, that some, places, congregations, whether it be a church or a centre or a dem or whatever, getting that response from somebody sat in front of you is a bit more hard work now than it was pre-COVID. That's an interesting psychological effect of this time, I think. And also, you have to be quite explanatory, I think, sometimes when we're working with different congregations or audiences. That if I would say, I've got a gentleman here, 6'2", size 10 feet, 42 chest, black hair, pencil moustache, and more horn-rimmed glasses. If anyone says yes to that, I'm going home. But if I were to say something like that as an opener, it's getting more noticeable that people will go, he had size 10.5 feet, so I'm not going to answer. It's odd thing that's come in. It is an odd thing that's come in. It's just something we've got to learn as demonstrators to handle, to work with our teams better, to identify our sitters, or to allow spirit to lead us to our sitters through a description. So yeah, it's different, and I do notice it. To those of you who know Paul Church from online, you will know yes, no, maybe. Do it every time before the demonstration. Guarantee you, I'm not having a pop, but I can guarantee you the first person they'll go to say something and they'll go, that's fine. Please speak up. Please. But yeah, it's different. Joanna, the lockdown increased our gratitude for what we have and helped us to see what's important to us. God, the divine and ever-loving spirit, knows what he was doing, as gratitude brings so much good with it. Joanna, I agree totally. Gratitude is something we need to be well versed with. And where do I put that? Okay. I struggling over the last 6 or 7 months with the entitled energy coming back, and it just seems to be more prevalent than it was before COVID. I find that a really hard energy to deal with when the people display it, and it just seems to be, as I say, much more in abundance now than it was pre-COVID. We were getting pretty entitled before COVID, and it's such a shame that it is still not only prominent, but seems to be a little bit on the increase with people. This sense of entitlement. None of us are entitled to anything. We're not entitled to know that we're going to wake up tomorrow. Simple as that. But yeah, I agree. Julianne, 2 hours, 40 minutes to get to Paul. Beg your pardon. Now I know that. I know what's the latest I can leave it to phone you if the medium doesn't turn up. I'm joking. Orange makes everyone feel so welcome, so thank you. So serving Paul Spiritualist Church is a pleasure. I enjoyed Zoom services, and working in churches' centres is so rewarding. I understand what you mean about the clubs, as most times these people don't understand how we work, but it can be fun convincing them that we are just communicating with their loved ones. Yeah, I agree. We need different sort of... Every medium is totally unique in the way they work, the way they demonstrate, the way they link with spirit, and the way that we portray ourselves with our audience, congregation, whatever. And yeah, as a generality, if there's an element of a humor, and I'm not saying make a joke every message, but if there is an element and allow the humor, because we're bringing through that, not only that information, but that presence. And if you've got Dad, and Dad was a real tease, portraying that evidence so people can react to that. But I agree with you. People don't understand how we work, and that is across the board a lot of the time. We are seeing a great influx of people into our churches and centres, and I always say, we've got to remember to go back to that 1.0 of our understanding when we're talking to people, because they don't understand what it is. There's nothing wrong with that. None of us did. We all were the first time walked in a church or a centre going, don't anybody talk to me because I'll run out of here screaming. We all started off there, but we always have got to remain and retain that for when we're people, just drip feeding that teaching coming through in various different ways. We can do that through the quality and the standard of our mediumship. We can do that through our humour, our compassion, our healing, and take every opportunity. And also understand that we're not going to be everything to everybody, and neither should we be. We are ourselves. We got our unique personality, which is intertwined with that communicator's personality, and that's how it's portrayed. And some people won't get it. That's fine. You know what? You came along to experience it. Absolutely brilliant. You could sit at home and say, well, rubbish, I'm not going to that. Well, then you lose out. If you go to a dem, if you go to a church, go to a centre, and you don't get what you're looking for first time, that's great, because you're on that road. You are starting to engage. But we have got to meet that from the churches and the centres and our venues. Just keep drip feeding that truth through, and giving people something to go away with and thinking, how does that work? How does that work? Very good. Thank you, Julianne. Oh, goodness me, you're all busy out there. Lovely Mary. Hello, darling. Mary Dixie. Why do some mediums insist on giving a description of the spirit when the recipient says that they never met, as the spirit had passed before they were born, so know very little about the family member? Yeah, know what you mean, seen that. There's all different schools of thought on that. I'm probably in your school of thought that if I've got a link here and they were not physically known to the recipient, I would be asking the spirit and saying, okay, what do you know of their life? Where's the evidence? That is a favourite phrase of mine on earth and in spirit. Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence side? I think sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I think that might portray the way in which they were trained to work, and not have that fluidity of, we've got to be very fluid when we work, because no two communicators are the same. And one communicator, when you've got two mediums working, doing a dual link, you get totally different aspects of that person, which is absolutely fascinating. So I do understand what you're saying there, Mary. It is a little. It just seems pointless, doesn't it? It's just like you can tell them they had a gold tooth and a hook for a hand, and a parrot, and we're going down a silly lane here, but you could give them all that. If they never met them, never knew them, doesn't mean anything. You are there as a medium to give the evidence of the continuity of life, and if that avenue is not going to serve that purpose, then you need to go, well, okay, what do you know of their life? Because he's talking here now, although you never met, he was a great support to your father. He talking about your father here, where he helped him with work, and he actually helped him out quite a number of times financially as well. So you can turn that around. So that person knows somebody's there, but then through the further evidence, you think, oh yeah, Dad did used to talk about his brother and said, well, thank God for him, because he really helped us out of the hole once, or whatever. Or, oh yeah, we worked together. He set up a business and I went and worked for him. So yeah, you've got to find out how it links with you, and that may be through a third party. So thank you, Mary. Lovely Marion. We each are a temple for the divine. Those that attended churches are usually those that have opened up to that personal connection, who come within the peaceful, built-up energies within the church with beautiful, like-minded people and giving thanks. Versus the just for fun entertainment people. But hopefully it will touch something with them to start their own personal journey. Couldn't agree more, Marion. Really can. As I'm going more interested in the metaphysical and talking about energies and understanding energies more, it does reinforce and explain. The lovely Julianne just made a beautiful comment here about Paul Church, because we work very hard on keeping those energies up. You know, we work very hard on incorporating everybody. You know, like any family, we have discourse at times. So get it out, get it sorted, don't let it fester. The committee structure of the church, you know, we all get on really well. And again, you know, like any family, every now and then you'll have little ups and downs. That's fine, get it sorted. You know, just deal with it. So you're creating this living energy here. And people are aware of it. We had a dem last night with Bill, and many of the attendees were not church people, and that's not a derogatory term at all. They don't come to church. But a lot of them are coming in and going, oh, it's really nice in here. Yeah, it feels lovely. I'm enjoying this. So, yeah, it's our job, isn't it? This is our job. You know this. You're a platform evidential demonstrator. Our job is to just keep sowing seeds. Yeah, we just keep sowing seeds. Some seeds take, some seeds don't. That's fine. It's not our job to drag people out of their orthodoxies. We can open the door. We can't drag them through kicking and screaming. Like to. Anyway. Lovely, Jack. I agree with Julianne. It's lovely to serve Paul, even though it takes us 24 hours to drive. Yeah. You really got to work on that, Jack. You really have. You got to put your foot down, mate. Stop driving a pedestrian 20 miles an hour. Oh, God, I'm going to suffer for that, I know. Yes. Julianne, yes, every spirit coming through is a different model of being with a unique personality. It's our job to ask for words that the recipient will understand. So linking back to Mary's comment there, yeah, that's our job, is to give evidence. And if the recipient is not understanding that line of evidence we're giving, then we've got to go back and say, okay, this ain't working. Where else can we go? Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me your story. Lovely Myra. I forgot where you come from. Norway. Not Finland. You mentioned spiritual assessments earlier. The spiritual assessments of which I've received from different mediums have varied. For example, I'm said to be an evidential medium, trance medium, physical medium, psychic medium, healer, etc., depending on the mediumship. I feel there is a lot of responsibility when giving a spiritual assessment. There truly is, Myra, and you've, in your phraseology there, you've highlighted something. Here at Poole, I have a house rule that if you come in for a private sitting or spiritual assessment, you don't come back for 6 months. Simple as that. Because you can engage a dependency on it. Also, as I say earlier, you know, there are people, and I'm not knocking them, people earn their living through their mediumship, and that's absolutely fine. There is no issue with that. I know some people get a little bit hot under the collar, but there is no issue with that. And if that is your business, and you go to, you know, I've got 5 evidential mediums here who all earn their income through their work, and you approach each 5, well, guess what? You're going to have 5 readings because that is their job. You know, maybe have a think about limiting the amount of sittings and assessments. You know, it does suggest to me, I don't know, and I'm not no deference to whoever you've been to, but the fact that you've gone for from there, the counting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. From what you've said there is suggestive that you've been for 6 spiritual assessments. So go back with that energy and work with that. Why have I been for 6? You know, why have I been to 6 different people for assessments? Am I not getting what I want to hear? Am I not getting the right information from people? Am I casting my net maybe a little bit too shallow? I don't know. That is for you to understand. But yeah, big advocate of that. If you've had a private sitting, don't want to see you for 6 months, because dependency on sittings and assessments is very, very unhealthy. Very. Anyway, people, thank you ever so much. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's little ramble down the country lane with Lawrence. It's nice to talk. I love having guests, and I've been so privileged with the wonderful guests that we've had, not only online, but actually getting to meet these people now as well in the real time. It's just been so beautiful. But once in a while, it's just nice just to sit here and have little natter about things, gentle chat. So, right, Myra, so you've been given this in mediumship demonstrations by working mediums. Okay, I get you now, thank you. What my thing with that as a platform demonstrator is, you will see or be made aware of potential within people. We've all got potential. Whether we do it or not is a totally different matter. But I tend to dress that potential up by not totally identifying what branch of mediumship spirit are suggesting you go down, but just with the caveat of saying, you know what, spirit is really interested in you, and whatever path you follow, whatever you put in, spirit will give back to you as well. So find where your path lays, because we do, don't we? And this again has been commonplace, especially in the UK. People walking doors of, you're going to be a healer, you're going to be an evidential mediumship, you're going to be a healer. And it was just those two fields, and we need to lose that identity a bit and just go, you're going to be a medium. How that manifests, I've got no idea, but do you know what? Your link to the spirit world is great. Find out yourself. Or you're going to be psychic. You're a really good psychic. You know, we give psychics a bad rap. I've heard people say, well, that's only psychic. I've seen amazing psychics. Psychics make great mediators. They make great healers, all sorts of things. So, just explore your mediumship. And actually, having said psychic, it just seems the lights come on for some bizarre reason. So, there we go. So, I'm going to be able to turn lights on with my mind. So, thank you. All right, there we go, Joanna. You sat there typing that, so get that one. Although I appreciate Zoom and the internet, nothing beats the physical dems and the communication with other like-minded people. When people feel more comfortable with being able to go out to the church and centres, will all be full. This lockdown spirit have been very active, opening the awareness for those budding mediums that have now realised their abilities. So many have awakened during this time. These phrases, awakening, whatever, you know, we have realised the value of community. We have realised the value of being with like minds. We have realised the value. You know, we tend to use words which are indicative of something that's been bestowed upon us. But you know what? Every truth, every lesson, every understanding comes from here, comes from within. So when we found that we couldn't meet people. We were denied that. Suddenly the value became so much greater. Anyway, thank you, Mary. I really don't know what's happened there, but it's great. Thank you. Lovely little chat there. Thank you, Julie. Yes, most definitely. Very funny. Yeah, I hope it's given things to think about and have a little ponder. Because this is one of the beauties of this age, that we can talk, and just take away thoughts and just think, yeah, I'm not so sure about that, or yeah, actually, yeah, that resonates with whatever I was thinking, or yeah, that actually complements something I was thinking of. So yeah. Anyway, blessed evening, everybody. Have fun. Don't forget, we will be live online tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Where we have the wonderful Mark Stone with us, who will be doing a Lyceum service. So in the Lyceum service, instead of where we would normally have the reading and philosophical address, we will have a piece on one aspect of the history of spiritualism. It's part of the continued education program here at Paul to make people more aware that what you see today, we're standing on the shoulders of giants of the past. So thank you, everybody. Been a joy. Wonderful. You have a wonderful morning, Julianne. I know wherever you're serving are going to be very lucky to have you. Absolute magnificent medium. And I don't say that about many people. So wonderful. Great night, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's always a joy. Take care, and we shall see each other